Joe Rogan gives his thoughts on Bradley Martyn versus Demetrious Johnson.
Bradley Martyn on the podcast said he could beat Mighty Mouse. They're not going to have an MMA fight. They're going to have a jiu-jitsu match.
Bradley Martyn has no chance.
Against 125
He has no
fighter.
chance. Is there a time limit?
There is not a time limit.
Then he has
sir.
no chance.
So Joe Rogan obviously knows a lot about fighting. He has commentated thousands of fights, and he's also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt himself. So I do think Joe Rogan's opinion is very valid here. He has commentated Demetrious Johnson's fights before in the past, and he seems to be pretty familiar with Bradley Martyn.
Is that right?
Zero chance.
He's going to get his back taken. He's
100% going to get choked out.
So we're going to.
It's just going to take time.
Yeah, we're going to lay some mats
Bradley is enormous, and Bradley is so fucking strong.
He's an athlete too.
He's an athlete.
Yeah.
Yes. No. He's a fucking specimen.
Truly,
He's a specimen.
truly.
I don't think anyone has ever doubted Bradley Martyn's physical attributes. I mean, he's like 6'3", 6'4", 260 pounds. I mean, he's a big dude, no doubt about it. I think what we're all trying to say is he can't just walk into an MMA gym and fight guys who are half the size of him, especially when you're talking about an organized sport like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Obviously, Bradley Martyn is a big, strong guy, but that doesn't translate to being able to actually fight.
Now, if this was in a street fight, the thing about Bradley is he can hit you with the earth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he can literally pick you up and you're
dive
gonna
on you.
hit the earth with, what does he weigh? 270?
Dude,
280? What does he weigh?
He's 265, but like
Yeah.
if you his hands, when you grab his
There's
hands,
Bradley.
yeah.
So-
but his hands are huge.
So I know a lot of people were probably expecting Joe Rogan to call Bradley Martyn stupid and to say he doesn't have a shot in hell fighting any of these guys, but Joe Rogan is kind of saying the same thing Bradley Martyn said. In a street fight, anything could happen, especially with a guy who is as big as Bradley Martyn, and honestly, it's hard to disagree with that. Now, if I had to bet personally, I would still bet on the professional fighter to win in a street fight versus the bigger guy, but you just never know what's gonna happen.
The amount of force
Yeah.
that body can generate. If that guy picks you up and smashes you into the ground,
Correct.
your body will shatter.
Yes.
Your body will shatter.
Yes.
If you're a human being, if somehow or another Mighty Mouse f***s up and that guy can pick him up and slam him into the ground, I don't know how much Mighty Mouse is going to be able to physically do to mitigate that.
Right.
Okay, so it actually looks like Bradley Martyn himself did react to this clip. He posted a few laughing emojis. I don't know if it'll focus in just a moment. Let me try to focus. So he posted a few laughing emojis, and he also said, hearing Joe say, in a street fight made me smile. I don't know if you can see it. You should be able to. It seems like a lot of the people from the MMA community aren't really happy with Joe Rogan's response to this whole situation.
If that guy knows how to pick people up, if he has any wrestling at all, he's so big.
Yeah.
And Mighty Mouse is, he probably walks around at $150 or $145, and he
Right.
cuts down to 125. He's so good.
I know.
But if they just no slamming, if they just do a jiu-jitsu match,
Jiu-jitsu.
Mighty Mouse is going to get him. He's going to get tired.
He's gonna get him. Yeah.
I really would hope Bradley Martyn doesn't disagree with what Joe Rogan is saying right here. I mean, yes, in a street fight, Bradley Martyn does have a chance, but in an actual jiu-jitsu match, I mean, Bradley Martyn doesn't have a single chance of defeating Demetrious Johnson. I mean, it's just not happening.
He's going to get tired.
Yep.
He's not going to know the positions.
Yeah.
He's going to get trapped.
That's what jiu-jitsu is.
Yeah.
That's what grappling is on that level.
It will be wild to see.
So I think we all have to give some props to Bradley Martyn for trolling his way to being mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast. Of course, this all started with him interviewing Devin Haney. If you aren't familiar with Devin Haney, he's a young, undefeated, and undisputed boxer, but he isn't known for his knockout power. He's a smaller guy. He's more like a Floyd Mayweather, where he's going to beat you on the scorecards. So I can see why Bradley Martyn thinks he could beat him in a street fight. You also have to take into consideration Devin Haney's footwork, his speed, his head movement. He's going to be hard to catch. It's not like he's just going to stand there and let you get close to him without letting his hands go. But regardless, I see where Bradley Martyn is coming from, because if Devin Haney slips, if he messes up, yes, Bradley Martyn could get a hold of him and slam him, and essentially the fight would be over at that point. But when you're talking about a guy who is as skilled as Demetrious Johnson, one of the greatest UFC fighters to ever walk planet Earth, I just don't see it happening versus a guy like that. Even in a street fight, my money is still on Demetrious Johnson. Yes, Demetrious Johnson could make a mistake and slip up and let Bradley Martyn get a hold of him, but 9 times out of 10, that isn't going to happen. Demetrious Johnson is a professional. He ain't making no mistakes in an octagon, and I don't think he's gonna make any mistakes in the streets where he knows his life is on the line. But I do think a grappling match between these two guys would be very interesting. It seems like a lot of people have been talking about this in the last month or so, ever since the Devin Haney podcast went up. People have been debating this, so actually seeing Bradley Martyn live up to all of his talk is going to be very interesting. We'll see if they do some kind of maybe pay-per-view. They're probably gonna monetize this some way, shape, or form. But I'll tell you what, I am glad Joe Rogan chimed in on this. Joe Rogan is very well respected throughout the fight community, so I do think people take what he says very seriously. They believe what Joe Rogan says, and I think Joe Rogan hit the nail right on the head. What he said is spot on. You know, in an organized sport, once again, Bradley Martyn has no chance. In a street fight where anything could happen, anything could happen. So Demetrious Johnson, or whoever the professional fighter is, could potentially lose against a guy who is as big as Bradley Martyn, no doubt about it. But I actually hope they make this grappling match happen and they aren't just talking about it. It would kind of be good to see Bradley Martyn eat some of his words. Bradley Martyn just said he wants to see Jake Paul get knocked out. Well, Bradley Martyn, we want to see you step in there. Jake Paul actually steps in there and fights people. This would just be a grappling match. You're not getting actually hit in the face. You aren't going to get knocked out unconscious. Let's see you get in there, back up some of this talk, and see how you perform. So I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. I will reply to you guys as well. I'm interested to see what you guys think. I mean, does Bradley Martyn actually have a chance versus Demetrious Johnson in a street fight, in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu match? Also, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already, and watch this video next.
When you talked about earlier about like me believing I could beat any of these people in a street fight, little trolly, halfway serious. Devin Haney, 100% I believe that one. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll give you that.
Nate is like, I'm like, I kind of did this for the fucking.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that like I have to believe in myself so much to that degree,
100.
because like everything that I've done, like I didn't do being like, oh, maybe I can do this. Like
You'd never make it.
I would never make it.